What you are about to hear is a work of fiction. The people, places, and events depicted in this story are products of the author's imagination or used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual individuals, living or deceased, or to real situations is purely coincidental. These stories may explore themes of crime, injustice, and human suffering. While fictional, they reflect real emotions and difficult truths that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
I deserve that money. I've earned it through 4 years of devotion while your precious daughter ignored you. Patricia's voice rose to a scream, her mask of friendship finally torn away to reveal the calculating predator beneath. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me tell you how Evelyn Rose discovered that sometimes the people closest to us can be the most dangerous of all. Please, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know just how far our stories reach. Evelyn Rose had always believed that 62 was too young to feel old, but lately, she wasn't so sure. Standing in her kitchen on a crisp October morning, she stared at the official letter from Hartwell and Associates, her late Aunt Margaret's law firm. The numbers seemed surreal. $850,000. After taxes and fees, she would inherit the bulk of her aunt's estate, money that had been carefully invested over decades of frugal living. I still can't believe it, she murmured to herself, running her fingers through her silver-streaked brown hair. The house felt too quiet these days, especially since her retirement from the public library 6 months ago. Her husband Robert had been gone for 4 years now, and the silence had become her constant companion. The doorbell chimed, and Evelyn's face brightened. Patricia Winters stood on the front porch, holding 2 steaming coffee cups from the local cafe, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the morning sunlight. "I brought your usual," Patricia said with a warm smile, stepping inside without invitation. At 58, Patricia maintained the polished appearance of someone in real estate. Crisp blazer, tasteful jewelry, and an air of professional confidence that Evelyn had always admired. "Patricia, you're an angel," Evelyn said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "I have the most incredible news." They settled into the living room, Patricia choosing the chair closest to Evelyn's favorite spot on the sofa. For 15 years, Patricia had been Evelyn's closest friend, especially after Robert's death when loneliness threatened to consume her entirely. "Tell me everything," Patricia said, leaning forward with genuine interest. Evelyn shared the details of her inheritance, watching Patricia's eyes widen with what appeared to be surprise and concern. "My goodness, Evelyn, that's wonderful but also terrifying," Patricia said, setting down her coffee cup. "Do you realize how vulnerable this makes you? People will come out of the woodwork when they hear about this kind of money." "I haven't told anyone else yet," Evelyn assured her. "You're the first to know." Good. We need to be very careful about this." Patricia pulled out her phone and began making notes. "Have you thought about updating your will? And what about your financial advisor? Is he trustworthy? Sometimes these small-town advisors aren't equipped to handle substantial wealth." Evelyn felt a flutter of anxiety. She hadn't considered these complications. "I suppose I should speak with someone, but I'm not sure where to start." "Lucky for you, I have connections," Patricia said, her smile reassuring. "I know several excellent financial planners who specialize in inheritance management. And my attorney, James Morrison, is absolutely top-notch. He could review your current will and make sure everything is properly protected." "That would be such a relief," Evelyn said. "I feel so out of my depth." Patricia reached over and patted Evelyn's hand. "That's what friends are for, honey. I'll make some calls this afternoon and set up appointments. We need to move quickly, though. You never know who might be watching or listening." As if on cue, the phone rang. Evelyn moved to answer it, but Patricia held up a hand. "Let it ring," she said firmly. "Until we get your affairs in order, it's better to screen your calls. People have ways of finding out about inheritances, and you don't want to deal with financial predators right now." The answering machine picked up, but the caller hung up without leaving a message. Patricia nodded knowingly. See? Probably some scammer who's already heard rumors. They target recent widows and retirees, you know. It's absolutely despicable. Evelyn shuddered, grateful once again for Patricia's protective presence. After Robert died, Patricia had been the one to help her navigate insurance claims, update her accounts, and handle the 1,000 details that grief made impossible to manage alone. "I don't know what I'd do without you," Evelyn said sincerely. "You'll never have to find out," Patricia replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Over the following weeks, Patricia became even more involved in Evelyn's daily life. She accompanied her to the bank when the inheritance funds were transferred, sat beside her during the meeting with Patricia's recommended financial advisor, and was present when attorney James Morrison explained the benefits of updating her will. "Given your situation," Morrison had said, his silver mustache twitching as he spoke, "it would be prudent to consider interim arrangements. If something were to happen to you suddenly, the current will leave everything to your daughter Kate, correct?" "Yes," Evelyn confirmed, though she felt a familiar pang of sadness at the mention of her daughter's name. "The issue," Patricia interjected smoothly, "is that Kate and Evelyn have been estranged for several years. Kate made some very hurtful choices and said some terrible things. She's shown no interest in reconciling or even checking on her mother's well-being." Morrison nodded gravely. "In cases like this, we often recommend a conditional arrangement. The inheritance could be placed in trust with a reliable friend or family member as interim beneficiary until the daughter demonstrates genuine reconciliation rather than financial motivation." Evelyn hesitated. The estrangement with Kate had begun 3 years ago when Kate criticized Evelyn's decision to start dating again after Robert's death. The argument had escalated into cruel words about dishonoring Dad's memory and acting like a teenager. They hadn't spoken since, despite Evelyn's occasional attempts to reach out. "I hate to say this," Patricia said gently, "but what if Kate only comes around now because she's heard about the money? Wouldn't it be better to protect yourself and see if she's truly interested in rebuilding your relationship?" The logic seemed sound, though it made Evelyn's heart ache. She agreed to the interim arrangement, with Patricia listed as the temporary beneficiary pending Kate's demonstrated commitment to genuine reconciliation. As autumn deepened into winter, Patricia's protective measures intensified. She convinced Evelyn to change her phone number to avoid inheritance hunters, and she volunteered to screen Evelyn's mail for suspicious communications. "You'd be amazed what people try," Patricia explained, sorting through the day's delivery. "Fake charity requests, investment scams, long-lost relatives crawling out of the woodwork. I've seen it all in my real estate business." Patricia made sure she was the only one who knew Evelyn's new number, telling her it was safer that way. Evelyn's social circle gradually narrowed, as Patricia pointed out various concerns about her other friendships. Janet from the book club was gossipy and untrustworthy. Tom, her elderly neighbor who sometimes helped with yard work, was probably looking for handouts. "The important thing is to be selective about who you trust," Patricia warned. "People change when they think you have money." Isolated from her usual social connections, Evelyn found herself increasingly dependent on Patricia's daily visits. Patricia brought groceries, handled errands, and provided the companionship that made the large house feel less empty. She was helpful, attentive, and seemingly selfless in her devotion. But as winter melted into spring, small details began to feel wrong, though Evelyn couldn't quite articulate why. Patricia always seemed to know when deliveries were expected or when service people were scheduled to visit. She had strong opinions about every decision, from which grocery store to use to which television programs Evelyn should watch. "You need to be careful about your image now," Patricia had said when Evelyn mentioned wanting to volunteer at the animal shelter. "People will be watching to see how you handle your new wealth. Volunteering with animals is wonderful, but make sure they're not just after donations." The suggestion to avoid volunteering stung. Evelyn had always been active in community service, but Patricia's concerns seemed reasonable. She didn't want to be taken advantage of, and Patricia's real estate experience certainly gave her insight into how people could be manipulative. One April morning, Evelyn was surprised to find a young woman standing on her front porch. Tall and slender with auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail, she looked achingly familiar. It took Evelyn a moment to recognize her own daughter. "Kate?" Evelyn whispered, her heart hammering. "Hi, Mom." Kate's voice was tentative, hopeful. "I know I should have called, but, well, I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." Before Evelyn could respond, Patricia's car pulled into the driveway. She climbed out with her usual efficient energy, carrying a bag of groceries and wearing an expression of barely concealed annoyance. "Evelyn," Patricia called out, ignoring Kate entirely. "I brought those organic vegetables you wanted. Should I put them away for you?" The tension was immediate and palpable. Kate looked between her mother and Patricia with confusion and growing suspicion. "I'm Kate," she said, extending her hand to Patricia. "Evelyn's daughter?" Patricia's smile was glacial. "Oh, yes, I've heard about you. I'm Patricia Winters, your mother's friend. I was just telling Evelyn yesterday how sad it is that her own daughter never calls or visits." Kate's face flushed. "That's not. Mom, I've been trying to reach you for months. I've left voicemails, sent letters. I even tried calling from different numbers in case you were screening my calls." "I haven't received any calls or letters from you," Evelyn said slowly, though something cold was forming in her stomach. "I have the phone records," Kate said, pulling out her cell phone. "Look, here's your old number. I called it 12 times in the last 3 months, but it just says the number is disconnected, and I have the registered mail receipts for the letters I sent." Patricia stepped between them smoothly. "Kate, I think it's wonderful that you're finally reaching out to your mother, but showing up unannounced with claims about phone calls and letters feels very suspicious. Especially now that she's come into some money." "Money?" Kate looked genuinely confused. "What money? Mom, what is she talking about?" The confusion on Kate's face looked authentic, but Patricia's words echoed in Evelyn's mind. How many times had Patricia warned her that Kate might show up as soon as she heard about the inheritance? "Your great-aunt Margaret left me a substantial inheritance," Evelyn said carefully, watching Kate's reaction. Kate's face brightened with genuine pleasure. "Aunt Margaret? Oh, Mom, that's wonderful. She always loved you so much. I'm so happy for you." There was no greed in Kate's expression, no calculation, just pure joy for her mother's good fortune. But Patricia moved closer to Evelyn's side, her presence a reminder of all her warnings. "It's interesting that you show up now," Patricia said pointedly, "right when your mother has come into money claiming you've been trying to contact her. Where were you when she was grieving your father? Where were you during her lonely nights after retirement?" Kate's face crumpled slightly. "I was here, Patricia. I was dealing with my own grief and trying to figure out how to apologize for the awful things I said. I was scared Mom would never forgive me, and when I kept calling and getting a disconnected number, I thought she had blocked me completely." "That's a lovely story," Patricia said with false sympathy, "but actions speak louder than words. Your mother needed you, and you weren't there. Now, suddenly you're here with convenient explanations and phone records that could easily be fabricated." "Stop," Evelyn said quietly, her voice carrying a authority that surprised everyone, including herself. "Patricia, I need to speak with my daughter alone." Patricia's perfectly composed mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something hard and desperate underneath. "Evelyn, I don't think that's wise. You're emotionally vulnerable right now, and Kate clearly has an agenda." "Patricia," Evelyn said more firmly, "please go home. Kate and I need to talk." For a long moment, Patricia stared at them both, her jaw tight with anger. Then she forced her smile back into place. "Of course," she said sweetly. "I'll call you later to make sure you're all right. Kate, I hope you understand that your mother has people who care about her well-being now." After Patricia left, Kate and Evelyn sat in the living room, the air heavy with 3 years of unspoken words and regret. "Mom," Kate began, tears threatening, "I never stopped trying to reach you. Look." She scrolled through her phone, showing call logs and email attempts to the old number. "I know I hurt you terribly with what I said about Dad and about you dating. I was wrong. I was grieving and scared, and I took it out on you, but I never stopped loving you or wanting to fix this. When your phone number stopped working, I thought you had changed it to avoid my calls." Evelyn examined the evidence with growing confusion and horror. The calls were real, the dates consistent with Kate's story, all going to her old disconnected number. The registered mail receipts showed deliveries to her address, but she had never seen a single letter. "I don't understand," Evelyn whispered. "I never received any of this. Patricia handles my mail sometimes, but she would have told me." The realization hit them both simultaneously. Kate's face hardened with anger while Evelyn felt the world shift beneath her feet. "Mom, where's your mail from the last few months?" They went to Evelyn's home office, where Patricia had organized everything with typical efficiency. In a folder labeled Handled, they found Kate's letters, opened, read, and filed away. The phone records showed Kate had been calling Evelyn's old number, which had been disconnected when Patricia convinced her to change it for security. "She made sure I changed my number," Evelyn realized with growing horror. "She said it was to protect me from scammers, but she was really cutting off my connection to you." "She's been intercepting everything," Kate said, her voice shaking with rage. "Mom, what else has she been controlling?" As they talked through the last several months, a devastating pattern emerged. Patricia had systematically isolated Evelyn from every relationship and activity that might threaten her influence. She had convinced Evelyn to change her phone number and intercepted her mail, cutting off Kate's attempts to reconcile. She had convinced Evelyn to change her will, switch financial advisors, avoid social activities, and trust no one except Patricia herself. "I feel so stupid," Evelyn said, tears streaming down her face. "How could I have been so blind?" Kate took her mother's hands. "You weren't stupid. You were grieving and lonely, and she took advantage of that. She's a predator, Mom. She saw your vulnerability and exploited it." "But why? We've been friends for 15 years. She's never asked me for money or—" "Mom, you changed your will to make her the beneficiary. She manipulated you into cutting me out and making her the heir to nearly $1 million. She's been playing a long game." As the full scope of Patricia's manipulation became clear, Evelyn felt a rage she hadn't experienced since Robert's death. She had been betrayed by someone she trusted, isolated from her own daughter, and nearly robbed of her inheritance through emotional manipulation. "We need to fix this," Evelyn said firmly. "And we need to make sure she can't do this to anyone else." Kate smiled through her tears. "We will, Mom. But first, we need evidence. If we're going to expose her, we need proof of what she's been doing." They spent the rest of the day planning. Kate had experience in her marketing job with documenting communications and building cases for client disputes. Together, they devised a strategy to catch Patricia in her lies and manipulation. "We'll record our conversations with her," Kate explained. "In this state, you can legally record if one party consents, which you do. We'll also document every lie she's told you, every relationship she's tried to sabotage." "What about the will?" Evelyn asked. "We'll change it back, but we need to be smart about timing. If we move too fast, she might become suspicious and escalate her manipulation." The next phase of their plan required Evelyn to act normally around Patricia while secretly gathering evidence. It was harder than she expected. Knowing the truth about Patricia's motives made every interaction feel toxic, but Evelyn forced herself to maintain the pretense of trust. Patricia called that evening, her voice sugar-sweet with false concern. "How did things go with Kate? I hope she wasn't too pushy about money." "Actually," Evelyn said, following the script she and Kate had prepared, "she didn't mention the inheritance at all. She seemed genuinely remorseful about our estrangement." There was a pause before Patricia responded. That's Interesting. People can be very manipulative when they want something, though. I hope you're being cautious. Of course, Evelyn agreed. But Patricia, I have some wonderful news. The law firm called today. Apparently, Aunt Margaret had a secondary investment account that wasn't included in the original estate calculation. There's an additional $300,000. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that Evelyn wondered if the call had dropped. When Patricia finally spoke, her voice was tight with barely controlled excitement. 300,000? Are you certain? The paperwork is being finalized, but yes, I'll need to meet with James Morrison again to discuss how to handle this additional inheritance. I'll come with you, of course, Patricia said immediately. We can't be too careful with this kind of money. And Evelyn, I really think you should keep this information between us for now, even from Kate. We don't want to complicate your reconciliation with financial temptations. After hanging up, Evelyn looked at the recording app on her phone with satisfaction. Patricia's reaction had been everything they hoped for: immediate interest in controlling the fictional additional inheritance and a clear attempt to keep Kate from learning about it. Over the next few days, Patricia's behavior became increasingly possessive and controlling. She made appointments with her financial advisor without consulting Evelyn, suggested updating the will immediately to include the new inheritance, and began making subtle comments about Kate's motives. I'm just concerned, Patricia said during one of their coffee meetings, that Kate's timing is awfully convenient. She shows up right when you inherit money, and now there's even more money? Some people have ways of finding out about these things. How would she find out? Evelyn asked innocently. Oh, you'd be surprised. Court records, lawyers' offices, financial institutions, information leaks everywhere. And Kate works in marketing, doesn't she? Those people are very good at research and manipulation. Each conversation was recorded, documenting Patricia's increasing desperation to maintain control over Evelyn's finances and her growing hostility toward Kate's presence in their lives. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Patricia arrived at Evelyn's house in an agitated state, clutching a folder of documents. We need to act immediately, she announced, settling into the living room without invitation. I've been thinking about your situation and we're running out of time. Time for what? Evelyn asked, though she already suspected the answer. Kate is going to contest your will, Patricia said dramatically. I've seen this before in my real estate business. Adult children who feel entitled to their parents' money will claim all sorts of things: mental incompetence, undue influence, emotional manipulation. She could tie up your estate in court for years. But I haven't changed my will yet to include the additional inheritance, Evelyn pointed out. That's exactly the problem. Patricia's voice rose with frustration. Every day we wait gives her more time to build a case against you. James Morrison says we need to update everything immediately, including making the inheritance protection more explicit. Patricia spread the documents across the coffee table. The new will was even more favorable to her, designating her not just as interim beneficiary but as permanent heir, with Kate receiving only a token $5,000 to prevent legal challenges. I don't know, Evelyn said slowly. This seems very extreme. Evelyn, Patricia's voice took on a sharp edge. I've been protecting you and supporting you while your own daughter abandoned you. I've put my own life on hold to make sure you're safe and cared for. Don't you think loyalty and devotion should be rewarded? The mask was finally slipping. The sweet, selfless friend was revealing the calculating manipulator underneath. You've been so good to me, Evelyn agreed carefully, but cutting Kate out entirely feels wrong. Maybe we could find a middle ground? Patricia's eyes flashed with anger. There is no middle ground with people like Kate. She's already poisoned you against me, hasn't she? I can see it in your face. You're doubting me, doubting everything I've done for you. I'm not doubting you, Evelyn lied. I'm just trying to be fair. Fair? Patricia's voice rose to nearly a shout. Fair would be recognizing who's been your real family for the past 4 years. Fair would be acknowledging that I'm the one who held your hand through Robert's death, through your loneliness, through your fears about the future. Kate showed up for 5 minutes with crocodile tears, and suddenly I'm the villain? The ugly truth was spilling out now, and Evelyn's phone was capturing every word. Kate has been trying to reach me for months, Evelyn said quietly. I found the letters you hid from me, and you made me change my phone number so her calls couldn't get through. Patricia's face went white, then flushed with rage. Those letters were poison! She was manipulating you, trying to guilt you into forgiving her just like she's doing now. And the phone number change was for your own protection. You were getting calls from financial predators. By lying to me, by intercepting my mail and isolating me from my own daughter? I did what was necessary, Patricia screamed, abandoning all pretense. You were weak and vulnerable, making terrible decisions. Someone had to protect you from yourself. And benefit financially in the process? Patricia stood up abruptly, her hands shaking with fury. I deserve that money. I've earned it through 4 years of devotion while your precious daughter ignored you. I've sacrificed my own social life, my own interests. Everything to take care of you. That inheritance should be mine. The front door opened, and Kate stepped inside, having been waiting for Evelyn's text signal. She looked at Patricia with undisguised contempt. Well, Kate said calmly, that was enlightening. Patricia spun around, her face twisted with hatred. You little bitch, you've ruined everything. No, Kate replied. You ruined everything when you decided to manipulate a grieving woman for money. Did you really think you could keep us apart forever? I should have, Patricia snarled. You don't deserve her. You hurt her worse than anyone ever has, and then you waltz back in here like nothing happened. You're right, Kate said simply. I did hurt her. I said terrible things and I stayed away too long. But I never stopped loving her, and I never tried to steal from her. Patricia looked between mother and daughter, seeing her careful plans crumbling. You can't prove anything, she said desperately. It's my word against yours. Evelyn held up her phone, the recording app still running. Actually, we can prove quite a lot. The realization hit Patricia like a physical blow. Her face cycled through shock, rage, and finally, cold calculation. Fine, she said with vicious calm. But you'll never see a penny of that money, Evelyn. I've already spoken to my lawyer about your mental competency. James Morrison has documentation of your confusion, your inability to make sound decisions, your paranoia about financial predators. I'll have you declared incompetent before I let that spoiled brat inherit anything. James Morrison works for you, not me, Evelyn said with dawning understanding. That's why he was so eager to help with my will changes. Patricia smiled coldly. James is a very good friend of mine. We've worked together on several estates over the years. He understands how to protect vulnerable elderly people from their own poor judgment. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Patricia hadn't just been manipulating Evelyn emotionally, she had been building a legal case for financial control. The changed will, the documentation of confusion and poor decision-making, the isolation from other advisors, it was all part of a comprehensive plan to steal Evelyn's inheritance. Get out, Evelyn said quietly. You're making a terrible mistake, Patricia warned. Without me, you'll be completely alone again. Kate will take her share of the money and disappear. Just like she did after Robert died. You'll have nothing and no one. I'd rather be alone than be with someone who's been lying to me and stealing from me, Evelyn replied firmly. Patricia gathered her documents with sharp, angry movements. At the door, she turned back one final time. This isn't over. You think you've won, but you have no idea what you're dealing with. I have resources, connections, evidence of your instability. James Morrison will back up everything I've documented about your mental state. After Patricia left, Kate and Evelyn sat in the sudden quiet, processing what had just happened. Mom, we need to act fast, Kate said. If she really has a lawyer willing to support claims about your mental competency, we could be in serious trouble. What do we do? First, we get you a real lawyer, someone who works for you, not Patricia. Second, we document everything she's done. And third, we make sure everyone in town knows exactly what kind of person she really is. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal activity. Kate helped Evelyn find an excellent attorney, Margaret Chen, who specialized in elder abuse and financial exploitation. Margaret was appalled by the evidence they presented. This is textbook predatory behavior, Margaret explained during their first meeting. The isolation, the gradual assumption of control, the manipulation of legal documents, she's done this before. Before? Evelyn asked. I'm going to make some calls. Women like Patricia often have a pattern. If she's done this to other vulnerable people, we need to find them. Margaret's investigation revealed that Patricia had indeed targeted other recent widows over the years. 2 other women came forward with similar stories of manipulation and financial control, though none had been taken as far as Patricia had pushed with Evelyn. The case against James Morrison was equally damning. A review of his client files revealed several instances where he had helped Patricia gain control over elderly clients' assets, often through questionable competency assessments and will changes. But Patricia wasn't finished fighting. She launched a desperate campaign to discredit Evelyn and Kate, spreading rumors around town about family disputes and Kate's alleged greed. She filed a formal complaint challenging Evelyn's mental competency and demanding a court-ordered evaluation. The competency hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in May. Evelyn was terrified, but Kate and Margaret had prepared her thoroughly. Just tell the truth? Margaret advised. The medical evaluation will show you're completely competent, and we have documentation of Patricia's manipulation. The judge will see through her lies. The hearing was everything Evelyn had feared and more. Patricia appeared with James Morrison and a psychologist who had never met Evelyn, but was prepared to testify about patterns of confusion and poor judgment based on Morrison's documentation. But Margaret was ready. She presented the recorded conversations, the intercepted mail, and testimony from the other women Patricia had targeted. She also had Dr. Peterson, Evelyn's longtime physician, testify that there had never been any signs of cognitive decline or mental incompetency. The turning point came when Patricia took the stand herself. Under cross-examination, her story began to fall apart. She couldn't explain why she had hidden Kate's letters and voicemails if she was truly acting in Evelyn's best interests. She couldn't justify intercepting mail or isolating Evelyn from other friends and advisors. Miss Winters, Margaret said calmly, you claim you were protecting Miss Rose from her daughter's manipulation. But isn't it true that you yourself manipulated Miss Rose into changing her will to benefit you financially? I deserve that money, Patricia snapped, her composure finally cracking completely. I've given 4 years of my life to taking care of her. Her daughter abandoned her, but I was there through everything. If anyone deserves to inherit her estate, it's me, not some ungrateful child who only came back for the money. The outburst was exactly what Margaret had hoped for. Patricia's true motives were laid bare for the judge and everyone else in the courtroom to see. The judge ruled decisively in Evelyn's favor. Not only was she declared fully competent, but the judge also referred Patricia's case to the district attorney for possible criminal charges related to elder abuse and fraud. James Morrison faced disciplinary action from the State Bar Association and eventually lost his license to practice law. His willingness to participate in Patricia's schemes had violated fundamental ethical obligations to his clients. But perhaps the most satisfying consequence was how quickly word spread through their small town about Patricia's behavior. Her real estate business evaporated as clients learned about her manipulation of elderly friends. She was forced to close her office and eventually left town entirely, her reputation and livelihood destroyed by her own greed. On a warm evening in June, Evelyn and Kate sat on the back porch of Evelyn's house, planning a trip to Europe with part of the inheritance money. The legal battles were over. The will had been properly revised to reflect Evelyn's true wishes, and their relationship was stronger than it had ever been. "I still can't believe I fell for her manipulation," Evelyn said, sipping the iced tea Kate had prepared. "You fell for it because you have a good heart," Kate replied. "You trusted someone you thought was a friend. That's not a weakness, Mom. That's what makes you human." "But I nearly lost you forever because of it." Kate reached over and took her mother's hand. "But we found our way back to each other, and now we both know how precious this relationship really is." As the sun set behind the trees, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Evelyn felt a peace she hadn't experienced in years. The money would be nice, allowing for travel and security in her retirement. But the real treasure was sitting beside her, Sedge, the daughter she had thought she'd lost forever, now returned not by greed or manipulation but by love. Inside the house, the phone rang, but for the first time in months, Evelyn felt no anxiety about who might be calling. Patricia's reign of control was over, and Evelyn was free to live her life on her own terms, surrounded by people who truly loved her. "Should we get that?" Kate asked, starting to rise. "Let it ring," Evelyn said with a smile. "If it's important, they'll leave a message. Right now, I just want to enjoy this moment with my daughter." Kate settled back into her chair, and they watched the last of the daylight fade into a star-filled sky. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new possibilities, and the freedom to make choices based on love rather than fear. Across town, Patricia sat in her empty office, staring at the "For Lease" sign that would soon replace her business nameplate. She had gambled everything on a friendship she thought she could exploit, and she had lost it all. The inheritance that had seemed so tantalizingly within reach was gone forever, along with her reputation, her business, and any hope of redemption. But in Evelyn's garden, where mother and daughter planned their future together, there was only joy, forgiveness, and the sweet satisfaction of justice served. Patricia's false friendship had been exposed for what it truly was, and in its place, a real family bond had been restored and strengthened. As they headed inside to finish planning their European adventure, Evelyn realized that Aunt Margaret's inheritance had given her something far more valuable than money. It had given her back her daughter, her independence, and her faith in her own judgment. The false friend's hunt for fortune had failed, but a mother's love had triumphed, proving once again that the most precious treasures in life can never be stolen by those who mistake manipulation for friendship or greed for genuine care. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the people who claim to protect us are the ones we need protection from the most. Thank you for listening until the end. If you enjoyed the story, please consider leaving us a like. This helps us reach more people.